All right, lack of awareness. Lack of awareness is failure to be alert or vigilant in observing. So failure to be alert or vigilant in observing. Don't you hate it when something happens and you're like, there was this little nagging thing in your voice, or you should have done something but you didn't, and then something happens, like, I kind of saw that coming but wasn't paying attention? Okay, I guess not. So,
Oh, yeah, no, exactly.
just me.
Yes.
All right.
You check the tire pressure before I went on the road trip.
Yeah,
Now I got a blown out tire.
there you go. All right, lack of awareness. I don't know, I guess this guy here,
Didn't
yeah.
realize that
All the regulation said was install word is easily accessible. So, didn't think about where they're installing something in the airplane. And this guy's happy that he's, I don't know. They're crashing and he's like, yeah, at least I did it in my head. All right. Maintenance crew was performing maintenance on landing gear and it inadvertently retracted the gear. That means they made the gear go up. That is really bad. They used airbags to raise the aircraft, but this lack of awareness, this is the lack of awareness part. In hindsight, we can say perhaps someone should have walked around the aircraft before applying the air. So they put the airbags under to lift the aircraft back up, and I did do this run right. Here they are. Putting the airbags under, they're going to lift it up and, oops. And they put the jack right through the back of the,
Oh.
yeah.
I hate when that happens.
Yeah.
Right.
So you did what to the
I
airplane?
did not see a 35-foot jack.
Lack of awareness. People don't think about. Okay, so and speaking of jacking aircraft, I know a really common one in general aviation is there's a retractable high wing Cessnas like Cessna 182 RGs, Cessna 210s especially. They have retractable gear, but they have a high wing, so the gear goes into the belly of the aircraft. And so every time you do an annual inspection, you have to jack the aircraft up and do a gear swing and inspect the gear, make sure all the up locks, down locks, and everything worked. Well, the thing is, somebody who doesn't know, they don't read the book, they, like on a low wing, like a V-tail or a Bonanza, you can jack it up, and as long as you've got about that much clearance from the wheel, and you hit the retract, the gear comes right up, goes right back down. It's not a problem. So they think about that with the Cessna, see the same thing with the Cessna. They jack it up and get about that much clearance, and you go to hit the gear, and the gear, first thing it does is it goes down about 12 inches, 18 I think to be exact, and then goes back and then up into its back. And so it takes the aircraft, it lifts it up, off the jacks, moves it forward 18 inches, and the jacks go right through the bottom of the wing.
Read your manual.
There you go, read the manual.
Read the manual.
All right, so failure to be alert or vigilant. Let me see. All right, so safety net. Safety net. Just consider the consequences of your actions. Well, okay, that's easy to say, but do you think that anybody in the 747 scenario was that the consequences of their actions was something that would really played a part? I think it was just too many people doing too much stuff and trying to fix something quickly and wasn't just not paying attention. So
In a rush, pressure.
yep. Might have been somebody saying, hey, we got to move this airplane. You're tying up the ramp. We got to get other planes in here. And then ask others to overlook your work. I do know when I hate jacking airplanes. I mean, it's not horrible, but it's just, if something can go wrong, it's a time when it can. And it's just a little unnerving to see an aircraft sitting there with the gear up and on jacks and thinking, oh man, it's not really what they were made for. They're made to either fly or be on their landing gear. But I know when I'm working on it, I don't jack them up by myself. I always have somebody else. And I was like a third person who's just walking around, just looking, just watching. Is everything okay? Is the tail clear? We clear on your side, clear on that side. We still clear on your side? Yeah, we still stop asking. No. And so we all work together to do that. All right, and that brings us to I don't want to say favorite, but if I had to pick one, if somebody said, okay, you can only talk about one of these dirty dozen, I'm picking this one. There's absolutely no doubt about it. Norms. It is the most dramatic. It is the most problematic. And norms. Norms is an informal work practice. Or unwritten rules, or unwritten rules that are accepted by the group. There are countless examples of where things just become, well, that's the way we do it. And of course, and that's the saying too. Why am I doing this way? Well, that's the way we do it here. That's the way it's always been done. It's always been done that way. We do it this way. It's okay. It's okay because it's always been that way. And you guys are going to get into that. And it's probably the number one thing that you will get a violation for from me on this is norms. So you'll bring up something and say, why'd you do it this way? Well, that's because that's what he did. I saw you talking to him and you told him that. Okay, first of all, that's not what we talked about. And secondly, that is doing that's all. It's lack of knowledge, it's this, but it's, norms. Or we're going to be doing engines in the next class. And so it'd be 9 groups of 4. And you'd be kind of looking at, well, how did they do it? Is that what you want to be doing? How do they do it? Or the other thing I get is they're putting something together and it's like, well, why are you putting it together? Why is that bolt there? That's the way we took it apart. Oh, okay, I understand now. So you're basing how you're going to do your work on the last group who you don't even know, who may not have even passed this class, put the engine together. That's your standard of excellence? Is that what I understand? So you see what I'm saying there? So what's the saying? Trust but verify?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's trust but verify, which means if I'm working on an engine or anything, and I'm putting it back together, okay, this is the way I took it apart, I'm putting it back together, okay, I'm going to verify that was correct. I'm going to trust them, but I'm going to make sure it was correct. I take it a step further. I think everybody's wrong, wrong until proven otherwise. And I don't, because you put it together and it's wrong, who are they going to blame? You. And you could say all day long, that's the way I found it, and the response is going to be, so what? And I'm going to say, well, now it's what? You're following the norms, or and the norms got me in trouble one time. I'll tell you about this story. So, I'll wait till next semester. Well, okay, I can't do that to you. So it's too involved a story to tell you. But there was a part that at my company that we would actually recondition, and part of the reconditioning we would grind the feet on the rocker arms, and one day somebody got mad at us for something unrelated, but took that to the FAA and said, hey, they're refacing the feet on rocker arms. And the FAA called up and said, are you refacing the feet on the rocker arms? I said, well, of course. And I was very proud of the way we did it because I modified our machine to custom fit how the rocker arms hit on valves for a perfect contact, which nobody else in the industry was doing. And it made my warranty work almost non-existent, and our cylinders were running a lot longer than everybody else's. So I was very proud of what we were doing. And if I said, okay, you're doing that, that's fantastic. What's your data? Well, it's in the manual. What page? I don't know. It's page something. Read that manual. Okay, so it's not in that manual. Then it's in the other manual. I know it's the other manufacturer. Man, I looked through a stack of manuals like that. I couldn't find it anywhere. I looked through everything. I learned how to do it in this school when I went through this school. It was just something I was taught here. I got to where I was working. It was taught to me by the people who had done it before me. And the guy who had done it before him. They've been doing it in our shop that way for over 50 years. And I was the first one to get the call from the FAA going, you do realize that, okay. He said, well, tell you what, I'll call you back in a week and you'll have your data ready. I said, okay. I looked everywhere. I could not find it. I finally called the shop that I was very close with who did all our next level machine work, stuff that we couldn't do. I says, hey, you know what actually, take that back. I called shops all over the place who were, hey, do you guys reface rocker arms? Absolutely. Oh, thank God. What's your data? What do you mean data? It's in the manual. No, it's not. I had this conversation like over and over and over across the United States. I was the one to break it to them. Not one person realized it. Not one phone call did somebody go, oh, you can't do that. It's not in the manual. Not one. And so I finally called this other company who's actually manufacturing parts. And I said, in fact, I bought a lot of stuff from them. So I really had a good relationship with them. I said, hey, we knew about refacing rocker arms. Well, you can't do it. It's not in the manual. I said, okay, you're the first person. No, you guys do it though. I've sent my rocker arms to you for some of them, and I get them back, and you've done it. He goes, yeah, well, we have it's called an op spec. So we wrote an op spec on how to do it, and we got it approved by the FAA. And I was like, wow, can I borrow that? Absolutely. So I borrowed that, and so that's how I learned how to write op specs. And then I showed it to the FAA and said, okay, we're working in conjunction with them in this, and can I write an op spec and get it approved for our shop? So I'll tell you that's so then I wrote the op spec and got it approved by the FAA. So then we were approved to do it. But that there it was the norms. Everybody did it, and it caught me.
Decades.
Huh?
For decades.
Decades. And when I would tell people, they think you're lying. Everybody does it. No, I'm not lying. All right. So let's look at this one.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
So, a lot of what we've gone over already is how you learn a lot from just working with other people on projects.
Uh-huh.
How do you avoid exactly that, given the way you learn most of what you're going to learn?
Okay, so it's a fantastic question. So if say you came into my work for me and I'm okay, this is how we do engine overhauls, and I'm showing you this, and that. The question asked is where's that in the manual? Can I just want to read it? All right. I've got all kinds of examples. I could drag this all out, but I was going to do some work in the fabric shop. We had a fabric shop, and it's like, okay, Kevin, tomorrow we're going to let you put the fabric on these wings. Awesome! I couldn't wait to do it. I want the book. I'm taking the book home. It's a thin book. I'm going to take the book home. I'm going to read all about it. And I read the book from cover to cover. And trust me, when I say cover to cover FAA stuff, sometimes right inside the cover is the most important information. We just skip to chapter 1. But sometimes it'll have a preamble. It'll tell you stuff. And I read all the way through, even to the appendix. There's a thing that said, under no circumstances shall you ever, and it had how this process, that's exactly how we were doing it. So I walk in, I'm like, hey, we can't do this. Who said you can't do that? It's a manual. Let me see the manual. You guy in your stupid manual in your book learning. Well, I guess that is like that. Well, it's the way we've always done it. We've never had a problem before. Well, we can't do that now. So. All right. So, in my story, there were no consequences. Nothing bad happened. Even with the fabric stuff, nothing to us. Apparently, somebody did at one point. But I want to show you this, because this is rather dramatic. Okay, so norms. In the context of Dirty Dozen means our group has a better way to do this job than the published procedure. Sometimes it happens that way. Sometimes you can look at the book and it says, this is how you shall do it. And then as mechanics and very smart people, we think, I can save a little bit of time. I can do this a little bit better. I don't see what it's going to matter. I can't imagine that it would have an effect. And if you can't imagine it, that means you probably have a imagination problem. All right. So then the published procedure, tribal memory, peer pressure, or habit, or all other terms used to describe the norms. In the following case, someone discovered a creative way to accomplish the task and save 12 hours of labor. They saved 12 hours of labor on just one job. Sound like it's worth it? Okay, so here's this little cartoon and this little guy sitting here in this fork truck, and the fork truck's doing what? Hanging engine. It's kind of cute and all that. That's the real thing that happened. On May 25th, 1979, American Airlines Flight 191 and DC-10 crashed at Chicago O'Hare Airport after losing an engine during takeoff. Does anybody know which I'm talking about? I'm going to show you the picture, and it's a famous picture. Improper maintenance procedures were to blame. The failure was a cracked flange in the engine pylon assembly caused by a maintenance procedure. During the procedure, the engine and pylon were supported by a fork truck, while some of the pylon's attachment connections to the wing were removed and others were left in place. During this procedure, the fork truck's hydraulics leaked. So they've been doing this for years, but now they're doing it with a fork truck that's got leaky hydraulics. So it had to be adjusted from time to time. So in other words, they park it and the hydraulics just start leaking down, and that caused a little bit of stress. Just at some point, it ran out of fuel. All right, so now they had to go get fuel, and it's leaking. Later tests showed under these conditions, leakage would allow a drift from 1 inch in 30 minutes. During the investigation, it was determined a movement of only a ½ inch, which would have been 15 minutes, would produce a 7-inch fracture of the flange. The resulting crash killed the 271 people on board the aircraft, as well as 2 on the ground. And this is the worst thing. Well, it's the worst thing. This is where it just gets worse. The unfortunate fact is there is at least 1 additional fatality not on the list of the official Flight 91. One of the maintainers committed suicide.
Wow, couldn't take it.
I don't blame him.
That's a heavy burden.
Yeah, I remember that.
Does anybody go to jail for all of these things?
Oh, yeah.
Negligent homicide. Yeah. Yeah, when you do something that is negligent, you kill people, yeah, you can go to prison. So you can't read this. This picture was taken by an amateur photographer seconds before the American Airlines DC-10 crashed at Chicago O'Hare International. After losing an engine during takeoff, below is the resulting explosion. Improper maintenance procedure was to blame. 271 people on board were killed. I blew the picture up right here. Well, if you're actually watching online, you can't see it because the picture's too low. But you can see right here, you guys looking here, there is no engine here.
Mm-hmm.
So you have thrust on this side, you've lost complete engine on this side. I mean, it just fell right off. You can see the fuel running out right here in this photo is what it looks like to me.
I think literally just like doing barrel rolls in there.
Mm-hmm. So you got, and if you're not a pilot, it's kind of, you have to be a pilot to sort of imagine what it's like when you're taking off. Taking off is it is what I think the most nerve-wracking. Landing never bothers me at all because I got the airport in front of me. What's going to happen to the engine's going to quit. The wings aren't going to fall off. The elevator, it's fine. So worst thing that happened to me is my engine's going to quit. And if I'm landing and the airport's in front of me, so I'm a glider. I don't care. I'm there, been it. But when you're taking off, more often than not, you are taking off in an environment. And as a pilot, we always say this. Okay, if the engine quit now, what would I do? You play this game all the time. Makes you kind of safe. And more often than not, when I'm taking off, and I play engine quit right now, what would I do? The answer is crash. You cannot turn around and come back. There's just not enough room most of the time, and there's in front of you buildings and stuff. So it's always nerve-wracking. So these guys are taking off, and max power, and all of a sudden this thing just, before you know it, you're upside down. So anyway, that is the most dramatic one, and I guess we saved the best for last there, right? And also drive home the fact that how the mechanics felt about what had happened. So they always talk about that, on the news and stuff. Well, this happened to the plane, but there's always a lot of people on the ground who are going to suffer along with it pretty bad, and so that's very sad. And what was the reasoning behind all of this again? Save time. So the procedures called for a special a truck thing that came in and had cradles and all that stuff, but hey, they figured out how to save 12 hours, and it worked for a long time. It worked right up until the time that it didn't. So.
I'm taking those 12 hours on my time sheet.
Yeah, hey, you're getting paid by the hour. I mean, that's a terrible attitude to have. But it really is.
I mean, look at the result though, because you wanted to.
It's not worth it. It's not worth it. In the flying public, every person that gets on an airplane, you guys flown commercial. You probably don't think about it. You will now. I do. And I sit down, I think, I hope these are my graduates that worked on this plane. That's really what I think, actually. That's how I feel about this program. Except, he's not my grad, yeah, except for the one kid. I hope these are my graduates, because I trust them. I know they have good attitudes and they're going to do a good job. So at least anybody who's, since I've been here. All right, so this is just funny. Pre-flight inspection, you failed. What's wrong with this picture? You guys can't see it, can you? This one you can. Something blue on the end. This is the pull bar you used to pull an aircraft around on the ground.
Yeah.
They forgot left it on and they're flying around. So, that's just fun.
Fall off?
Nope. And they're lucky they don't have wheel pants. They're lucky they don't. If in this situation, it's going to trail behind, and so when they land, it's just going to maybe bounce up and hit the belly a little bit. But if they had wheel pants, it stays forward and the prop hits it, and now you have to do a prop strike inspection. So that would cost you 20 to 40 grand. Yeah.
What happens if like a panel falls off and like I guess injures someone on the ground?
Depends on whose panel it belonged to. If it's my panel, I hope I don't write my end number on my panels. They won't know it. But if it's United's panel, oh, they're going to sue United for millions and millions. And they're going to sue Boeing. Then they're going to sue the screwdriver manufacturer that made the screwdriver that they screwed the panels on with. And the and it goes on and on. Deep pockets. What is this we're looking at? These are just silly pictures. Just to try. Well, we've got to bring it around, lighten up the mood a little bit after that.
Call that fog.
Turbocharger?
That is a turbocharger. It was a turbocharger. It was a turbo. If you lost your 7/16" wrench, I got good news.
We found it.
Found it.
It's right there.
What is that off of?
It's a turbocharger. I don't know what kind of aircraft it is. I stole these off the internet. I really wasn't standing behind this when it flew over, and I didn't find that. I use Snap-on anyway. Somebody, speaking of this, somebody once, I think maybe I was going to school, don't ever write your name on your tools.
No.
And I said, why? Well, if you forget it in the aircraft, they're going to know who it was. All right. That is bad advice. How about this? Don't ever leave a wrench in the aircraft. The last place I visited was, I told you about Gulfstream. Gulfstream. And their security procedures are awesome. You don't need tools. They provide your own tools, at least at that one. I don't know. And they had 100, and they told us the number. It's like 170 some matching Snap-on tool chests. They're all this size, but a little bit taller. Exact same size. Every single one of them was exactly the same. And they were all big enough that 5 people could work out of them, and they were set up so that they're all the same. So you want a tool? What you did is you take your badge, you swipe it across a lock, it unlocks, you can pull it out. You took one of your own tool chips and you put your tool chip in the drawer and you take your tool out.
Wow.
And then at the end of the job, before the aircraft could leave, somebody came and inventoried the entire tool chest and tool chips. If a part or if a single tool was missing, that aircraft stayed right there. And they did an exhaustive search of the aircraft. If they could not find the part, they called the owner and or the director of maintenance for whoever is responsible for that airplane. They have a meeting with the crew, the crew chief, I don't know exactly, but they have a big meeting with the aircraft owner basically and say, here's the problem. We lost a wrench while working on your airplane. What would you like us to do about this? We are off, we need you to sign this document saying that you understand that and you accept the airplane. I don't know what happens if they say no. And so somebody in the little tour says, has that happened before? And he said, well, of course it happens. He said, it happened to me a couple weeks ago that they opened up and they were missing an extension cord with a light on it. And the guy said, okay, what did you use the extension cord with the light on? He goes, I was in the wing working on the fuel cells. Defuel the whole aircraft, open up all of the wing panels and climb in and they searched the whole wing, couldn't find it. Turned out some other mechanic had borrowed it in another station and never brought it back. Anyway, so yes, I remember working on an airplane one time. It was one of those things. I was pretty new, and it was, we got to get it out, And it was a retractable gear Cessna, and somebody borrowed one of my screwdrivers and left it in the airplane. But that's why you shadow your tools, so you know exactly what you are. You can see. Shadow means you have a little cutout. Everything goes in a cutout. And so you can see what's missing. And whoa, stop. As soon as I realized that I'm not using the screwdriver and somebody borrowed it and it's not here. And we need to stop right now. And they were really mad at me. I'm like, hey, it wasn't me. And we searched that whole aircraft. And I finally found it in the gear well where it would have bound up the gear. And then the person who borrowed it fessed up. Somebody left a can of lubricant. That's a drive shaft, probably a drive shaft off of a tail rotor, because why else would be a drive shaft, wearing right through this. So eventually this drive shaft is going to fail. And when the drive shaft fails, then one of the rotors isn't, or the tail rotor is probably not going to go around, and that's going to be a bad day for someone. Let me see. Oh, how you like this one? You see that?
Are those the cables you've been talking about?
Yeah, okay, so what you have here, these are control cables that are going to go to the rudder or the elevator or something along that line. And you have pulleys. And this cable is running across the pulley and under a guard, across the pulley and under a guard. This cable just runs across. Oh, it should be up here. See where this one is right here? This is probably the rudder cable. It should be up here free. It came down here. It's sawing its way through part of the aircraft, which is also sawing away at the control cable, and it's running underneath this nut and then out. So every time you move the pedals, you're going to hear this sawing away. Now, the sawing of this metal is not important. The loss of that cable is. What else we got? All right, so we have all that. Oh, I think we have to go back and just finish up a little bit here. What do we got? Norms. We got to have a safety net. Always use written instructions. All right, well, that's all fine and well. What if you don't happen to have written instructions, smart guy?
Go get it.
Don't what? Then you don't do it. Now, in my case, where I talked about that rocker arm, if I would have said, well, I just need the written instructions, wouldn't that have solved a whole lot of problems right then and there?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, instead of doing it with the norms. And sometimes we know what the written instructions say, and we think, well, this is the way we do it. Nope. So do not just ask someone. So you don't know how to do something, what are you supposed to do then? Okay, you should already have the manual in front of you at all times. You're never supposed to be working on an aircraft without the manual. That will get you into trouble. But if you don't know something, yeah, okay, so you're working on something you haven't worked on before. You're working on a retractable gear aircraft. Wow, a retractable gear aircraft, and it's got a very complex hydraulic system, and it's not actuating like it's supposed to, and you're kind of lost. And so you ask somebody for help. Well, you should have the book out, and they say, well, I'm not trying to think of something, That was a bad example. It's too complicated. But anyway, don't just ask someone, how do you do this? Oh, here's a better example. Hey, I got to retract this gear. So how do I jack it again? That's a bad question. Better question is, I'm going to jack this aircraft up. I need the jacks right here that says that I got to raise it up at least 18 inches off the ground. Which jacks do we normally use for this type of aircraft? Could you show me where those jacks are? And you get those jacks. And then it said, okay, and then the manual says I should put it right here. Is that, you agree with me on that? Yeah, I agree with you. That's where we're going to put the jacks. Okay, can you help me jack it up? Yes, we're going to jack it up. I've got my side up according to the manual right here that's open. How about you? Do you have? So I know you might think I'm just saying that, but I really do that, And for me, it becomes kind of a game to see how much I can remember out of a manual. So, like if I'm putting spark plugs in my aircraft, I'm going to put the spark plugs in, and I have to torque them. And the torque is 360 inch-pounds. Okay, so what do I do with that bit of information? Do I just adjust my torque wrench and do it? No. I get the manual and I go, and the torque is 360 inch-pounds. I'm still right. That's just how I do it. It's fun to kind of think and guess, is it right? Okay, then go, yes, I'm still right. Been right for many, many years. Because all aircraft are that, except for Lycomings, which are 420.
So you just quiz and then grade.
Quiz myself and then grade myself, but it's still me. My head is fully engaged in what I'm doing, and the manual is right there. And some people may think that's silly, but that's just, and I'm a silly guy. Yeah.
So is there, we talk about the manuals a lot, and is there a manual for one whole, like for the whole aircraft, or is it like for different parts of the aircraft?
Yes, yes, and yes. So let's take a look at a Cessna. So if I want to work on my Cessna, I could get the Cessna 150 manual, or I could get the Cessna 100 series manual, which is also the same thing. Then we could get into what is the most current manual, which is a whole other class. And then if I want to work on the engine, then I really need the Continental manual. Well, if I want to work on the Magnetos, then I need the Bendix manual. If I want to work on the prop, I need the McCauley. If I want to work on the carburetor, I need a Marvel Stromberg. So yes, depending. So you got the airframe, engine, accessories, and then sometimes when the engine is part of the aircraft, then you read the aircraft manual to work on it. So it's all over the place. And that is a great question to ask somebody too. Hey, I'm new and I need to do this. Which manual do you suggest that I go get? And they're going to say, well, you need the manual for it. And you know you just asked the wrong person.
But you know, I'm gonna seek a third opinion.
Yeah, so do not, let's see, do not, did you have a question?
Kind of.
Well, then I'll kind of answer it.
If you're working on like a variety of airplanes, like these libraries must be insane
Mhm.
with the number of manuals. Like, how do you organizationally keep track and find these?
The easiest way nowadays is very expensive, but you buy a subscription service.
Okay.
And you have laptops and iPads and everything right at your workstation. And so what the company is doing, that your company is then buying a manual for a certain size aircraft or certain range of aircraft, and then the company who is producing those manuals guarantees that they're up to date.
Okay. Thank you.
Now, like when I worked in the engine shop, it was kind of easy. We didn't have electronic manuals then. They were all on paper. But there was always a service bulletin attached to each one that said, hey, these are our current manuals. So as long as you had a subscription to the service bulletins, which we did, you just couldn't get it. You couldn't work without that. You would just turn to that service bulletin and say, okay, here are our current manuals. And so you just look, okay, that's X1256482, X1, oh, this is the wrong manual. You're gonna need the new manual. You know, so you just, as soon as you started working, you just check that manual. There is a whole lecture and controversy about what is the proper manual. In truth, the proper manual is the manual that was current the day my aircraft rolled off the factory. And I have documents showing that. It's very controversial, but so I could say, and I've got paperwork to show it, that says my aircraft, or this aircraft was built in 1971, and this was the current manual for 1971. Yeah, they've, changed it 100 times over since then, but they have ruled, and it's very hard to find, that that you can use that manual. Now, most repair stations, we had to write in our op specs, our operational specs, what we considered a manual. And so FAA wants you to write, we'll use the most current and up-to-date manual. So now if you're working for a repair station, it has to be the latest and greatest. You can't go back and say, well, in 1971, it worked there. So things change. That's why FAA likes repair stations, because they can make you write stuff like that. Do not do something. I don't know. Do not assume. Do not assume that what someone else did makes it correct. That what someone else. Let's scroll up someone else. Else did makes it correct. And I could rephrase that, we'll use a different word. Just because. Just because something, just because it is normal, because it is normal does not make it correct. Now, again, I don't want you to get this feeling like, aviation is this weirdness where we're really fighting, trying to make it right, and there's all these people who want to make it wrong. I worked with a guy, his name is Renner Brewer, and I don't have any stories about Renner. Why? Because the guy was a fantastic and great mechanic who I loved working with, and the two of us, always wanted everything right and perfect. And so, we could play off each other that way. And if there was ever a question, I could look at something, and if I had doubt in my mind, I could always ask him and know that this is a guy who's going to give me the straight answer, whether I like it or not. And he said, nope, that is not the way to do it. That is not, no, you shouldn't do that. Okay, so, I don't have any stories like that. I don't have any great stories between us two because it was day in and day out, two guys doing the best they could. And there was really no problems. You knew Renner, didn't you? Oh yeah. So, and I'm.
Work with him a lot.
Yeah. So I'm telling the truth on that one.
He's the melting gold guy from Terminator.
So yeah, he was working. He owns his own shop now
Yeah.
in
North?
that way,
Yeah.
up in the mountains.
Northeast.
Yeah, it's I can't think of the name. His son just graduated, and he's working with him now too. But you know, so there's all these guys I could talk about who I got no stories because everything they did was just to the best of their ability. I'm on YouTube, so I don't want to throw out too many names. Steve Wilkie, you know Steve, another great guy. I mean, I worked with some of the best guys you're ever meet in the industry, and we learned from each other and kept each other accountable and honest. And that was usually what happened day in and day out, over and over.
So how many guys can you say that you've worked like that in your whole career?
I was fortunate, and I really only worked for like one company for almost my whole career.
Oh,
And it grew from just this. I don't want to bore you with the story. Tell you what, nobody wants to go back to this. So sorry about that walk down memory lane. Thank you for going with me. I just bored you to death. Okay. Now we're moving on. Why am I doing that? All right. Am I on H? I hope so. Maintenance related maintenance. Maintenance related errors. So we're out of the dirty dozen, but we're still going to talk about this a little bit. So I had some wonderful reading, and it showed that one study, I don't have the study with me, showed that 75% of maintenance related errors maintenance related errors, I should put maintenance related crashes. Can anybody take a guess? What did they distill it down to? 75%. We've talked about the dirty dozen. Maybe you can, you already know, so. Well, okay, what human error? What human error was made? And it's not really one of the dirty dozen per se.
Not paying attention?
I like it. Okay, she's on it. Not paying attention. That's not it. No. Failure to follow procedures. So there we have it. Which one does that sound the most like now with Dirty Dozen? Norms. Failure to follow procedures. This is just the way we do it here. So, failure to follow procedure. Failure to follow procedures can be defined as, what do you think? Let's hear what you guys have to say.
like you were talking about that you did. That they had asked you if it was in the manual, that y'all been doing it for 50 years.
Okay.
It wasn't in the manual.
Following the norm. Okay. I have four here. See if you can get all four. How about intentional or unintentional?
Unintentional.
Cutting corners.
Misunderstanding the directions. I see that a lot. A very well-intentioned person who is reading the manual gets to a word and they just kind of go, well, I don't know what that means, so I'm just going to go back. Sure, it wasn't important. I'm trying to think. I have a really great example. Something in this class that I know that everybody messes up on constantly because I think it's something I don't do anymore. Anyway, yes?
We had a sitting thing when I worked with Kelly at Advanced. There was helicopters that they were bringing from Italy. I could only find Italian manuals.
Gosh.
So we started looking up words as best we could to figure out what the wiring actually was doing so that we didn't blow the thing up.
Dang.
And I'm going to say we got luckier than we got good on some of them. Like the silenciamento wires, that was cracked us up.
Jeez.
That was the engine wire coming down to silence everything, so that when the engine failed, you knew it.
Let's see, I'm gonna pull this one up. There we go. I already knew what I was thinking of. Subsequent. Hope you read it.
Lack of communication.
Hang on a second. Let me. So, yeah, we had. I was doing an annual inspection on an aircraft one time, and a certain AD was not done. And so I don't know, whatever I called the person or something. I forget what I had to do, but I thought, why isn't it done? Well, because it doesn't have to be done, because it says this serial number or subsequent. And I said, what does subsequent mean? And it said subsequent means anything before. I said, well, you might want to look that up, because it means everything after. So you said the 80 doesn't need to be done because of that early serial number, but in fact it meant everything from this serial number after had to be done. So it wasn't a bad person. They just misunderstood. So got misunderstanding. All right, thinking you know better. Thinking you know better. Like using a fork truck to save a couple hours. Doing it right takes too much time, or I can't see why it will matter. Heard that. And then following the norm, what do we got? Okay, not reading directions. Not reading directions.
What about lack of assertiveness?
This showed that 75% of the maintenance errors are failure to follow procedures, and this defines failure to follow procedures right here.
Okay.
So what do we mean by failure to follow procedures? So not reading the directions. You know, like almost getting done with your project and realizing, what do you mean I got to write the references down? So now I got to go look it up again.
Christian.
I'm not
You
going to
already
write
know
this.
the references.
Somebody once.
You brought him out that. He's like,
said-
No, I was halfway down. I was like, oh.
So if you don't follow procedures, the question is that you can't or you won't. So if somebody's not following procedures, you can't or you won't, because it distills down to that. There's no other two choices to it. If you can't, and you're working for me, then that's my job to make sure that I get you what you need so that you can. If you won't, then it's my job to. And it's right.
You got way too big of a smile now.
I never had to fire anybody. All right, decision making. I wrote this. I'm not going to write it. It's my belief that a good mechanic must make the conscious decision to be a safe mechanic. I'll say it again.
Can you repeat that?
A good mechanic must make the conscious decision to be a safe mechanic. Probably should write it, huh? A good mechanic. A good mechanic must make the conscious decision to be a safe mechanic. To be a safe mechanic. And honestly, it's just practicing it every single day. You practice, you practice, you practice, and it just becomes second nature, and it's not something you really think about. Yeah, I was doing a pre-flight. I was getting ready to fly my airplane a couple months ago, and as I do, I pull it out of the hangar, get it all kind of set up, and then I start my pre-flight, and I do the same thing in the same sequence, and I check all these things, and some guy shows up and he starts talking to me. Okay, so I have to stop and I have to talk to him, and then what are you supposed to do if you get interrupted? I go back a little bit, check the oil again, start going. Then he'd walk out and ask me another question. Answer his question, go back 3 steps. He comes out again, asks me a question. He goes, oh my gosh. He goes, I didn't realize. He goes, you're actually doing a real pre-flight inspection? He goes, dang, I haven't seen one of those in a while. Everybody I know does it, But it's just, for this, and I watched this guy fly. He pulls the airplane out. He gets in, he fires up the key, and he goes, dang. Didn't check anything. Okay then. Okay, we talked about the Mechanics Creed, and you guys read the Mechanics Creed. And maybe if I was cool, I'd pass it out right now. We'd read it, and then I'd say, now it's up to you to make the right decision. Practice good decision-making skills now and decide to be a safe mechanic now. The guy who taught me to fly, he never taught anybody else to fly, which is funny. He had his instrument rating and instructor certificate and all that. And so as part of the perk for working for the company, he said, you know, what would make you a really good mechanic is if you got your butt in an airplane and knew what it was like to fly around at night over a mountain and hear an engine kind of sputter. So I want to teach you to fly. So it was one of the perks I got. I got free flight lessons, free use of the company airplane, and I loved it. And every lesson would start and stop with the same statement. Kevin, I can eventually teach a monkey to fly this airplane, but I will never teach that monkey to make a good decision. So it is up to you. If you want to stay alive, you need to start making good decisions because flying an airplane is quite simple. And we'd end the lesson with the same thing. So, you know what that is, Rich? Yeah.
I was jealous you got to fly the 140 and
It was sweet. I didn't mention that. It was a vintage Cessna 140 in pristine condition. So, tailwheel aircraft. All right, break time.
Break time. Break time.